Did you just get the alert?
I did.
Okay, cool. So we'll go ahead and kick things off and go from there. Cool.
Cool.
All right. Good morning. What's going on, Vernon? How we doing?
Hey, what's going on, Jonathan? Man, I'm doing pretty good, man. Just had a good workout. Great shower to follow up, man. Just ready to tackle the day.
Hey, man, that sounds good. I'm feeling. I ain't got to work out yet, but we're gonna get there. And so happy pre-Christmas to you as well. Christmas Eve. Hope you got your Christmas shopping done. Got to get a few things left on the agenda, but I mean, no judgment. They'll get there. So, but yeah, I appreciate you taking the time. Want to just talk about overall health and wellness today, and as far as your audience is concerned, I'd love to hear more about one, what you like to share. I know you, but I'd love for other people to understand one, why we're here, what we're here to talk about, and I'll give you the floor. So take it away, Vernon.
All right. Well, man, actually, Jonathan, what you may not know, man, is I'm a former soda drunk. Man, I used to sit and drink sodas and juice all day. I am, however, a graduate of Grambling State University.
Okay.
So that's something you are familiar with. I'm also a graduate of South University, the Virginia Beach campus. So a working professional in customer service and hospitality. A husband of my father, my brother, a friend, cousin, my grandson, and I'm a doer. I try to live my life as a doer, whether good times or bad times, man. Just a doer and trying to get things done, and really appreciative to be able to be on a call with you, man, to kind of go into detail, man, what took place with me and my health and wellness journey here over the last year and a half.
Yeah. Well, I definitely appreciate it, man. And I know over the last, year and a half, 2 years now, with this whole COVID outbreak and all this other stuff, a lot of people have experienced massive changes, one in their life, their personal health and wellness, and just the impacts of just friendships and family. I really am appreciative that, one, you would take the time here to share more about it as well. And for the sake of the people that may or may not know a little about me and you, our conversation relationship goes back a little bit. So we've known each other for a little while here. But for me, I'll just share personally to hear some of the things that you're going to share with us today. I had no idea, until I started seeing some of the posts and you and I started kind of conversing again and just talking more about what you had going on. I was just blown away. But then to see just some of the results, the changes, and just the lifestyle changes that you're able to make, I thought was just tremendous. So tell me more about your story, man. Give us more. You told us a little bit of who you are. Let's take a little deep dive into some of what you're here to share with us today.
Well, first let me say, contrary to popular belief, man, the pandemic as a whole was a blessing. It really allowed for, at least for me, allowed for me to reassess a lot in my life and get some things in order. And what I once thought was an unfortunate situation, actually ended up being one of the greater situations for my life here, being in the third decade of my life. So last year, man, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and man, I was just blown away. Like, how could this happen to me, man? Not the sugars. Not the sugars, man. I'm like, man, am I gonna get my leg cut off? Am I gonna lose my vision? It was pretty scary. And the doctor, man, was so casual when he expressed it. I'm like, man, they must tell people this very often. But once I calmed down, man, and thought back to what led up to it, man, I had been putting myself on pace to become a diabetic for years, man. I mean, it goes back to high school, eating a gazillion times a day for no reason, man, just because I could. And going to college didn't make it any better, man. Love Grambling State University, man. Learned a lot about myself. But I indulged in food like crazy, man. Like, food was just my comfort, Stressful day in class, go to the cafeteria. Okay, no problem. But man, 3 or 4 plates later, now I'm done. Not one or two, because it was buffet style. And then across the street we had was Tiger Express is what it was called then. So you had like Panda Express, you had Burger King, a few other places, and we had Tiger Bucks that was a part of our tuition package. And so I would use them just recklessly. I'd run out of Tiger Bucks, man, probably in like the first month of the semester. Just using it recklessly, man. So, and then after I graduated, I moved to Virginia. I graduated 2012 in the winter of 2012 and moved to Virginia about a week later, January 2013. And, you know, at that time, man, I had been in pretty decent health, but it was a life change for me. New location, new scenery. As much as I wanted to be in an area with snow, I was bamboozled because it only snowed probably like a few weeks after I got to Virginia, and then it was just bipolar weather, what I was familiar with from Louisiana, but I didn't have my vehicle that I was used to using, and so I couldn't go to a gym. I tried to work out on my balcony for the college that I was attending at the time, but man, once I started making friends and spending time with class, everything socially was centered around food for me. And you know, I put on a crazy weight, you know, over the last 7-8 years. And you know, the beginning of the pandemic, when you know we started working from home and not being able to go out much and spend time with people in person, it really just gave me, you know, that much more of an excuse to indulge in all the little Debbie snacks and you know, a whole bunch of soda and juice and candy. And then I learned about DoorDash and Uber Eats, and you know, just utilizing those. I mean, I wasn't spending money in gas. So, you know, I had a few extra dollars. Why not, you know, use it to buy something from, you know, the food delivery apps. And it wasn't until, you know, my wife and I went to Michigan for our friends Keith and Ariel's wedding. That's when I realized there was somewhat of a problem, but I didn't want to accept it. I mean, I was pulling over on the highway, man, to urinate. I couldn't hold it, man. I couldn't make it to the next gas station, the next exit up, or the next hotel or convenience store to use a restroom, man. It was like my bladder was gonna bust, and I didn't want to wet myself. So you know, it's crazy, man. At one point, I had thought about buying some Depends. I never told anybody that, but yeah, at one point I thought about buying some Depends, man. But I did it. I did it. And but yeah, man, that trip was crazy, man. I mean, in my book, I even talk about, you know, just that entire situation. I mean, you know, being in a pretty formal attire and pulling over into a random parking lot to unfasten all that stuff and pee behind a dumpster, man, is just mind blowing. Looking back on it, it was just crazy. It's a crazy time. You know, but got back from the wedding and you know, went to the doctor, and that's what they told me. And you know, it was scary, man. I remember they asked me about blurred vision, if I experienced blurred vision. And the answer was yes, but I had never told anyone. I just felt like, oh, I could just shake it off. You know, it's no problem. You know, there was nothing wrong with me. I mean, I was having tingling feelings all in my fingers and toes, man, and down my left leg, man. It was a scary time.
Wow.
Just to have that confirmed that, okay, there is a issue with this, a chronic illness. But then once I learned that it was self-inflicted, you know, that made it that much more worse, because like, man, I did it to myself. So,
man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man, that's huge, and that's a lot. You know, that's a lot. Even one, I think being able to take ownership, you know, and to say, hey, you know what, I realized something, and I saw something there as well that needed to change. And even looking at just overall, you know, how would you even define that? You know, looking at your definition of health and wellness, what, in your opinion, what does it mean to be healthy in lieu of some of the things that you've kind of gone through and been able to experience?
Yeah, you know, when I sit back and reflect on, you know, my emotions and how I viewed myself, the high level of insecurity that I had, you know, today I'd say that health and wellness for me, and being at, you know, having optimal health for me, and you know, all that, is being at myself in the mirror and genuinely smile. But also being able to genuinely smile while I'm out and about because of who I am and the skin that I'm in. I mean, for years, man, I would fake it till I could try to make it make sense. You know, fake smiles in public because I just didn't care for how I looked when I saw myself in the mirror. bathroom, in the mirror in restaurants, and
Yeah.
in my rear view mirror
Mhm.
when I'm trying to see who's coming up behind me
Yeah.
in traffic. You know, I just didn't care for who I saw.
Yeah.
But today, man, I'm like, way more appreciative and
Mhm.
accepting of who I see in the mirror because I worked hard to get those results.
Yeah.
And they didn't come overnight, man. It took a lot of time. I mean, what I had to realize that in the spirit of health and wellness
Yeah.
is that, my biggest adversary was the man in the mirror, was the person that was staring back at me,
Yeah.
a downer, a negative person,
Mhm.
a lazy person. And
Uh,
once I finally got that person on board with the changes that I knew I needed to make,
yeah.
everything got better a lot faster than I imagined it would have overall, top to bottom.
Wow, 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 wow. And I definitely want to come back to a lot of what you said, but very early on, you emphasized today a couple times, like today, this is how I saw it. How does that change and how would that differ from what you would have said like a year ago or 2 years ago, 5 years ago, prior to going through this experience? How would you have defined it before?
Yeah, man. In the past, man, I thought health and wellness was, at least for me,
Hmm.
doing some kind of physical activity
Okay.
just to say that I did it. If I could do
Hmm.
something to intentionally sweat, then
Hmm.
I was working on being healthy, regardless of what I ate, regardless of what I saw, what I heard, what I allowed to become part of my psyche,
Hmm.
which had a huge effect on how I viewed myself,
Yeah.
looking back on it. That was, college, even 5 years ago, that was that's how I viewed health and wellness. I thought if I drank a little bit more water than the juice or soda that I consumed, I was
Hmm.
okay.
Okay.
I could still have a juice, I could still have a soda, but as long as I drank a little bit more water in
Yeah.
ounces than I did in juice or soda, then
Yeah.
hey, majority wins, right? Okay. But
Yeah.
definitely had to switch up my thinking
Yeah. Yeah.
when it came to all of that. Had
Mhm.
to.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think one of the other things too, in the spirit of even health coaching and some of what we do in our organization at Bizzz, one myself, a couple of our other trainers as well, and looking at like the life changes, the psychological things that come into play there, as well as the physical and things that you're kind of talking about here in the behavioral. What did you do to get the man on board that you were just referring to earlier? Like, what did it take for you to do that?
Yeah, great question. The first thing it took was realizing and accepting where I was. I mean, when I walked out the clinic that day, man, I was in tears, man. I
Uh,
held him back in front of the doctor. He wasn't going
right.
to see me sweat. He
Yeah.
wasn't going to see me get emotional, and I wasn't going
Mhm.
to let the people in the
Sure.
waiting room,
Yeah.
see there's something wrong with me. But once I
Mhm.
made it to that door,
Yeah.
boy, that air hit the face. Man, I was
Oh
I was
man.
crying, man, and I had to embrace that. Looking back when I had to embrace that this is where or that is where I currently was, and I had to accept it. I had to let my emotions flow. I had to, allow myself to be vulnerable with me and be vulnerable with God. Like, man, this is where I am. In addition to that, when I got my car, man, I made phone calls immediately, man. I couldn't play around with it
Yeah.
because at a moment's notice, my vision could have went from blurred to non-existent.
Wow.
And, I mean, I was already, gambling with my health as it
Mhm.
was. I mean, Fish, before I went to the doctor that day, the
Mhm.
clinic, I stopped at a convenience store and purchased 5 drinks because
Mhm.
I had already knew something was going to be shared that I didn't want to hear, and they were
Mhm.
going to recommend that I cut back on some things, and I just
Mhm.
assumed juice and soda was going to be one of them. I
Wow.
purchased 2 fruit punch juices, purchased fountain drinks, 2 sodas, and like a slush type drink.
Mhm.
And by the time I made it to the car, I took a sip of the juice of one of those juices, threw it all away. I had to let it go.
Wow.
It had a hold on me that I didn't realize until sitting in the doctor's office and them telling me my blood glucose level was 476. Them telling me that my A1C level was off the charts,
Wow.
greater than 15.5, and I was 274. at the time, man. So, even to hear that number, I'm like, man, I don't look 274. But when I start looking at pictures, I'm like, man, I was huge. That's all I weighed. I thought I would have weighed more. So, realizing that, I hopped on the phone. I called two people after my mom and my wife. I called two people, one being an herbalist, someone that I knew personally that had made a physical transformation that also had a huge impact on his mental health and his self-confidence. And so we talked about what I found out about myself, and he reassured me like, hey, don't sweat it. A lot of work has to be done, but you can do it because there are resources out there. And we just started talking about natural herbs. We started talking about sea vegetables. We started talking about, popular herbalists. And, then we put a pin in it so that we could talk a little bit later. And after I hung on with him, I called a friend of mine by the name of Tony Lee, who's a personal trainer as well. And I've been working out with Mr. Lee on and off for years, but I didn't really get the results that I was looking for because of my stubbornness. Working out is great, but if the nutrition side isn't up to par with whatever the goals were, then I wasn't going to achieve them, and that's something I had to realize as well. And so, called him. He reassured me like, hey, I can help you reach your goals, but you do have to make a change, especially in the kitchen. And we had that conversation. And, I remember telling him like, hey, I'm going to give it 2 weeks before I can get started with you. And I had wanted to detox my body. And, it was me telling myself that there was a quick fix to start off. And, once I started research, man, self-education, getting an understanding of what this chronic illness is, how it affects the body, understanding that it was a culmination of poor that I've made, emotional decisions that I've made over the course of years. 2 weeks wasn't going to do much of anything but give me this false sense of security that I was okay. And so I remember, cutting it down to a week after I realized like, hey, if I wait any longer, then I'm going to end up not doing it. And so we got started, 7 days later, and he put me on a regimen, which oddly enough I was against, but I was desperate. So pandemic, right? Gyms are closing down, or they're having limited staff and limited patrons come in to utilize their facility. And so Mr. Lee said, I'll work out with you virtually. You can work out from home. And I told him I don't have any weights, man. I don't have any equipment. He told me I didn't need any equipment. If I wanted to get a jump rope, I could have gotten it. So I went and purchased one. And everything I did was on my patio, man, with a jump rope, and I used a dining room chair, and that was it.
Yeah, hey, it's awesome, man. And man, there's so much that goes into that, and some of what you're sharing. One of which I think definitely aligns with some of the things that we talk with our members about and our clientele and people at the gym. We have a slogan that we started last year, or maybe even early in this year. It's called "Own It." And what we're really emphasizing is taking personal responsibility and ownership, one, for where we're at, but also our story, understanding the impacts that our story has on other people in our own personal lives. And to hear some of your own vulnerability of saying, man, like when I was there and when I walked out, man, just the emotions, the things that kind of came over me and what I was willing to do after having that reality set in. What for other people that might be here or taking a shot at this, what do you think it would take? Does it have to take that hard-hitting moment? Why do you think it took that for you to be able to accept and own where you were at, in your personal journey?
So for me, having it confirmed, documented on my health records that I was in a position where if I continued down the path that I was on, my quality of life was going to decrease significantly, even from the horrible position it was already in. But I also wasn't going to be around long for my wife and for any children that we could have had. Now, mind you, this was probably a month, maybe a month and a half before I found out that me and my wife were expecting. And so a child wasn't in play at that moment. But just the thought of, want to have children, and if I lose a leg or a limb in general, I can't play with them the way that I would want to.
Yeah.
And so, that's why it took going to the doctor and finding that out for it really hit hard.
Yeah.
And because I had been avoiding the doctor for over 3 or 4 years. I had been intentionally avoiding the doctor. And I detailed that in my book, just my mindset on going to the doctor, even with having loved ones, not urging me, but encouraging me rather to, hey man, you should go get checked out just so you know where you are. And I was like, nah, I'm good, ignorant, because I'm not a medical professional. At the time, I couldn't tell you why my fingers were tingling. I can tell you now because of what I've experienced and found out. But, if something else abnormal happened to me right now, I couldn't tell you why, because I'm not versed in that field. And I was just real ignorant, man. Not wanting to utilize the people in our community that, study these things and are here to assist. And so, but, finding that out, man, was huge. It was paramount for me to go ahead and, make a decision on if I was gonna, just wallow and be pitiful and continue on with what I had been doing and just, have this woe is me attitude. Or, go ahead and figure out how to make a change so that I can, for what I can control, help improve my quality of life and the duration of it from what I could control.
Yeah. I mean, and that change aspect. I mean, we even said it a lot. And I'll throw that out here again. You go with it wherever you want, but were you ever reluctant to change? And what did that look like for you? And how did that either get in the way, but also kind of reinforce, the changes necessary that you needed to make? What did that look like for you?
So prior to the diagnosis, change as it related to eating was just not an option. I couldn't give up pizza. I felt like I couldn't give up nachos. I couldn't give up fried chicken and French fries and, Wendy's. This is all these, these convenient, tasty foods. I just felt like I couldn't give them up. I found my identity, or a part of my identity, in them. I had some great memories sitting around a box of pizza. I had some great memories sharing a bucket of chicken with family and friends. And so, I just felt like I couldn't give it up, man. But once I, found out, where I was, did some research, and again, concluded it was self-inflicted, I had to make a change, and I had no excuse not to, considering the life goals that I had for myself. Now, if I would assume that if I didn't have any life goals, any aspirations to, get this or obtain that or work towards this or work towards that, especially as it relates to, having a family and wanting to be an entrepreneur and all these things, I would assume that I would have been reluctant to change once I found out, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. But I am grateful that that wasn't the case, and that, as tough as it was, and it was tough daily, by the grace of God, I was able to implement a level of consistency that has yielded the results that I have today, the mindset that I have today, and the lifestyle that I'm, have incorporated.
Yeah, we're gonna dive into that too, because I'd love to hear more. I'd definitely love to hear more about how you're going. So we'll definitely revisit that too. And for you, was the change difficult? Would you say that change rather is, and just how did you, like, what were the hardest obstacles outside of like the food changes and things like that you may have had, like, and how did you get started? What did that look like for you?
So growing up, I hated change with a passion. If something, good, bad, or indifferent, if something was going on or doing things a certain way, I was used to seeing or being around something or someone, and it just changed abruptly, it bothered me. It messed me up, it messed up my flow, what have you. So I always had this reluctancy to change in general, and to where I just despised it. However, for this, the change was necessary, but it was difficult. I mean, to this day, I haven't had juice or soda since I was diagnosed. but it doesn't mean that it's been easy. I mean, my grandmother purchased some juice, and she doesn't know this. She purchased some juice that I used to guzzle down by the carton years ago. She purchased it the other day, and it's still sitting on our dining room table here at my parents' house. And I remember, telling my mom the other day, like, "Hey, we gotta throw this away." And they were asking me why. And my wife, she spoke up for me. Yeah, I think he's tempted, and it was true because we don't buy it for our house. Me and my wife, so we don't purchase that. We only purchase spring water, and then we'll get coffee for her. I don't drink coffee. But for it to be sitting there, it really bothered me. Not that anyone did anything wrong, just me because of who I am. Now, through prayer and talking through things, I'm feeling better about it. So I just don't touch it. I don't even look in that direction. It's still sitting where it was set. But it still has its challenges. I mean, when it comes to food, in general, while I do still eat the things that I enjoy, pizza, burgers, fries, whatever, I eat it sparingly. And to get a taste of something and then to say, okay, I'm not going to have it for another 2 or 3 weeks, that's challenging. It takes, jumping back into whatever groove I'm in as far as what I'm eating for, the week of the month on a consistent basis. I got to jump back into it quickly so that I don't, kind of, harp on or stay fixated on, man, this chicken tastes good, I got to have it again. Or man, this pizza tastes good, I got to have it again. So it's challenging in that regard, to say, hey, I'm going to treat myself to a small portion of this or that. And then, hey, jump right back into my routine, the routine that's yielded me the results that I have today, the routine that has helped me feel way more secure in who I am, to enjoy looking at the man in the mirror and waving to him and not, looking down or looking away, trying to avoid eye contact, with the man in the mirror, to be able to fit my clothes, the way that they fit now. Like this is a large hoodie, not an extra large, not a 2 or 3X. So a year and a half ago, I was wearing 2X and 3X stuff. And, to be in a large, man, is huge to me. I haven't worn a large size shirt or hoodie in over a decade.
Wow, that's huge.
My pants, when I went to, Keith and Ariel's wedding, found out I was a size 46. And I was like, man, I've never been that big, wearing pants that size. Now I'm in the 38. And I say that to say that the change is necessary. I like the results of the change, but it's still difficult. Even to this, some days are better than others. Most days are better than others, but there's still challenges. Things that trigger my emotions. Take me back to, man. I want this, or man, I want that. And throughout my journey, especially early on, I gave into those emotions. I mean, there was one day, man. I cried. I was sitting at home by myself. My wife was at work. I was on the clock for my job. And I just got emotional, man. I couldn't even tell you why I got emotional, but I just got emotional for something. And I wanted a burger. So I ended up ordering 2 through DoorDash from Five Guys and a large fry to go with it, knowing good and well I ain't need that. Knowing good and well, it's gonna suck to tell my wife I purchased this, let alone ate it. As well as to share with my trainer as well on our next workout session. And so I ate it, man. I sat there and ate on my lunch break with tears flowing down my eyes, man. Just thinking like, man, it's hard to sustain, this lifestyle that I want to have to heal myself and get better. It's tough, it's challenging, whatever. But, I ate all of what I could consume of that because I didn't eat all of it because I was stuffed. But, I remember once I, finished, I made some phone calls, sent some text messages. Hey, this is where I'm at right now. That's how I'm feeling, whatever. And, great thing about being an adult and, being primarily responsible for the decisions and the outcomes of those decisions in your life is, if surrounded by the right-minded folks, no one's going to beat you over the head for a decision that you make for something that only affects you in the immediate future. In the immediate future, my health only affected me. Long term has effects on others, but Yeah, but everybody I talk to, my accountability partners, like, hey man, you know what? It's over now. It happened. You can't change it. You just got to get ready to, get ready to handle that situation, a bit better than what you felt like you did the next time when it comes around.
Right.
And so I just remember like, hey, you know what? I fell off the horse. Let me get back on it.
Yeah.
Work out the next day, back on my eating regimen the next day,
Yeah.
and just trying to take it a day at a time. But to go back to the original question, man, change is difficult. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy at all.
Yeah. And man, I have quite a few follow-ups from that. But in a short standpoint, in understanding that, change can definitely be difficult. And it's my opinion that challenge and those pains and those restrictions lead to growth long term. How did you prepare yourself mentally for a drastic change like that? I mean, hearing some of where you came from and where you are now and where you're headed, what was it that helped you to prepare mentally, understanding you're about to go through something that might be difficult or that will be difficult, and that you are going to have, in fact, some kind of pain points on this journey and through this experience?
Yeah, great question, man. So for the majority of the things that I did through this journey, I tried to keep my reasoning very, very simple so
Okay.
that I could recall it,
Yeah.
in at a moment's notice. And so, depending on what was going on. So for me, what I thought through was, I can't leave my wife. I can't go out like this and leave her, a widow in this way. Not because of my own doing. I
Yeah.
mean, to me, that was equivalent to going to a neighborhood that I had no business being in
Yeah.
and doing something I had no business doing, inviting conflict that could
Right.
result in a fatality.
Mm.
I equated it to that.
Okay.
And then, about a month and a half later, once I found out, my wife and I were expecting, having a child, on the way, was that second piece of
Yeah.
motivation, to push through, the majority of the tough times, the
Mhm.
majority of the emotional times, because I wasn't perfect. And I had to even realize early on that perfection is scripted.
Mm.
Perfection is visible in movies, edited motion pictures. My
Mhm.
life can't be edited. What
Mhm.
happens is what happens, and I have to live with whatever decisions that I make, and
Yeah.
hope to make a better, or if it was good, a good decision, the next opportunity. And so, understanding that I couldn't be perfect, my intention was to just strive for consistency.
Yeah.
And for me, consistency is what was going to yield long-term
Yeah.
results. And I'm
Yeah.
just grateful it worked out that way.
That's real. That's so real. So, hey, that consistency piece, man, that consistency piece is huge. And one thing that, again, I do have another follow-up question, but I'll throw another plug in there. Is I believe it's one step, no matter how small, just to get to where you want to go. One step, one day, one rep at a time. I say it all the time. And just helping people to understand, like, if you believe you can do it,
Yeah.
then you can do it. You know, but ultimately it comes down to what you think is attainable for you. And much like you said, I love how you put it. Like, perfection is scripted, right? And like, our lives can't be edited, but ultimately we do have the power to change the future as far as what our lives look like moving forward. But if we think that everything's just going to be like happy-go-lucky and golden right off the bat, like all relationships can start off, relatively well, but how we choose to take them moving forward when times get difficult, I think, are ultimate, like, times where we can define what we really want them to be. And I think that health and wellness journey is very much like that.
Yeah.
And some of what you shared really stood out to me as far as just the emotional aspect of being with, like, the food. Like, you created memories, right? You created, like, times, like, happy, good, bad, whatever the case may have been, behind it. But then you also took it a step further, and you talked about the emotions that came back even after, like, going through this change and even being at work. and what that looked like, and even just wanting to go out and just kind of eat and do whatever. How did you get back? Like, how do you bounce back? Because when I talk to, my clients, and, as I'm sure you can imagine, like, we're like, oh man, I was working out great for a week. I was working out great for 2 weeks. We had this plan. I missed a day. And it's easy to get discouraged, right? It's easy to feel like I failed, completely negating all the work that we just did to get to that point, and we allow ourselves to fall flat after one mistake, forgetting that our entire future lies ahead sometimes. And I think which can be caught up in some of the emotion that we have, and understanding that, man, change is so difficult. And when we put ourselves through these strenuous processes, when we mess up one time, or we feel like we're not perfect, like we don't have that scripted reality, or that movie-esque lifestyle, something's not going right. When we're ultimately doing a lot of things, something not going wrong, right, but we are in fact doing things the correct way. Like, we are going after it. Like, oh man, I think something's wrong here. No, actually, it happens. How do we get back? How do we change that perspective? How do we alter our mindset to understand that we do have a lot going on that's right, and not so much the emphasis and enhancement of the things that we may have fallen short on? Or in some cases, people might think we failed if we had a burger, or if we had some sugar, or we had a drink or something like that, that's a failure, and not understanding that, man, we have a lifetime of growth to do.
Yeah, great question. So Wardell, Stephen Curry, right?
Yeah.
Shooters shoot.
Yeah.
There have been times where Steph has had not so good shooting, not so good games, period, as far as his three-point shot, which, many regard, him as someone that have changed the game as it relates to shooting the three and how often and what have you. But many times after those few falling in between games where he didn't have the performance that, even his teammates would have expected from him, they were always positive. His coach always rings praises on him. And Steph just had a bad game, or Steph said he just had a bad game, or Draymond even said, Mr. Vocal, he just had a bad game, but he's still our leader.
Yeah.
And, we're going to keep feeding him the ball. And so, I say that to say that, although, perfection is just not possible in real life.
Sure.
With consistency being a goal, it's not possible without accountability partners. It's not possible without a team of individuals around you that believe in you and that push you to be who it is that you want to be, to do what it is that you say you want to do so you can achieve it. And so for me, I couldn't have bounced back in any of those moments that I've had over the last year and a half of weakness and emotional eating without my wife, without my parents, without my trainer, Mr. Lee, without my herbalist, Breon, who are all of, core pieces of my life anyway, as far as our relationships, wife or parents, or, these two gentlemen being friends of mine, and then they just so happened to offer these services that I was, fortunate enough to be able to purchase and utilize. And so couldn't have done it without, having a team of people around me that wanted to see me get better and be better just as much as I wanted to, but with them being on the from the outside looking in, they're able to say, hey, you know what, don't be so hard on yourself. It happened, it's over with. Let's get ready for the next decision that you're gonna have to make. And they were there for me time and time again, with situations like that. And I credit a lot of my success on this journey to all of them.
Yeah, man, huge. That's huge. And even hearing that again, I wanna go back again and just revisit it. Looking at the accountability partners, the people in your life, and we think, all right, you know what? Give yourself wholly to them so that everyone may see your progress, right? And what type of impact did this type of change, this type of reality, this lifestyle have on the people that were either an accountability partner, just a friend, or just other people in your life? In your opinion, how's that impacted them?
Well, my parents don't have to start prepping for a funeral.
All right. All right.
Keep it as, very blunt as that. I mean, I was eating myself into an early grave.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, didn't have to start preparing for life without me for this reason,
Mm-hmm.
which was a, huge and paramount for her because she was scared.
Mm-hmm.
For my inner circle of friends, regardless of how often we get to communicate, which,
Mm-hmm.
quick side note here, I realize the majority of the people that I interact with that I consider to be great friends, you included,
Mm-hmm.
are business owners,
Mm-hmm.
are business minded,
Mm-hmm.
are, striving for self-sufficiency if they're not there yet.
Yeah.
And so, and even understanding that, I'd hate for, one day a friend of mine to look up on the news, man, that happened to Vernon. Man, I hadn't talked to him in a while,
Mm-hmm.
blah, blah, blah. I sure hate that happened to him. And again, it would have been because I did it to myself. And I
Yeah.
just can't go out like that. I can't leave the people I care about behind
Mm-hmm.
because of that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man, I mean, I think, everybody in my inner circle, they're happy for me for sure.
Yeah.
But, I also feel confident expressing that they're happy that I'm in a position to be able to be around a bit longer,
Yeah.
at least from what's in my control,
Yeah.
to be able to share moments with them, to share more experiences with them,
Yeah.
to be an impact on their lives, but also
Yeah.
to be impacted by their
Mm-hmm.
lives in my own.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean we've hit a lot on this change aspect and the process going through it, right? So tell me now what you've gotten from it. I mean, you told me the before, what you experienced, what you've gone through. What have you gained from this experience now as it concerns your health and wellness?
Well, no, the word no is an excuse for me. Is one of the things that I realized. No, I
Okay.
don't want to give up this, or no, I don't want to give up that for whatever reason.
Right.
It's like a cop out.
Okay.
But I also realized that the word no is empowering.
Mm-hmm.
That the word no helps reinforce the future that I desire to have for myself. And so,
Mm-hmm.
from this journey, I've learned that, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever decision I choose to make, it has a direct impact on the trajectory of my life,
Yep.
which I'm in control of.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I'm I'm happy to say that I've said no for more of the right reasons
Right.
than for more of the emotional wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But throughout this, which I'm happy for, but throughout this process, I've learned so much about myself,
Yeah.
so much self control that I didn't think I had,
Yeah.
which has always been there. I just refused to exercise it. And so,
Mm-hmm.
through this journey, I've learned that I can be more controlling of how I carry myself than I've
Mm-hmm.
given myself credit for.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that it's under my own power and my own will.
Mm-hmm.
A huge component of this journey was realizing what God has allowed in my
Yeah.
life. Because there's times where I could have been in an accident due to my vision just randomly getting blurry in my left eye.
Okay.
There have been times where I could have been hit by a car and pulled
Mm-hmm.
over on the side of the road to go and urinate because I felt like I couldn't hold it
Yeah.
to the next to the next exit, or couldn't even make it home.
Yeah.
If I was on my way home, anything could have happened. I mean, not to be funny, but I think about the movie Final Destination.
Yeah.
Enjoyed those movies. They're great movies to me,
Sure.
for their purpose. But I'm like, man, crazy stuff can happen. And
Yeah.
sometimes, at least what I got from some of those movies, sometimes we kind of put ourselves in positions for
Yeah.
negative things to possibly take place.
Yeah.
And so while I'm not in control of those things happening per se,
Mm-hmm.
I am in control of an aspect of my life that could invite
Yeah.
negative things to happen,
Mm-hmm.
good, bad, and indifferent. I'm just grateful that nothing negative has happened that, would have put me in a really bad position,
Yeah.
fighting for my life.
Mm-hmm.
And through this journey, I had to realize that it's because of God's grace. It's
Yeah.
because God said, no, I'm not going to allow this to happen to you, or I'm going to let you go through this so you can get here, but I'm going to protect you along the way. I'm going to keep you along the way so that you can learn whatever lesson it is that you need to learn moving forward for the remainder of your life, however long that is, because I don't know how long it's going to be. And what I also had to realize is that what I'm going through, God is allowing for me to go through so that I can in turn help someone else that's going through it or going to go through it. So not saying that God won't at all, but kind of be a reassurance for someone that, man, Vernon went through such a health and wellness journey and transformation. Somebody could be like, man, God's, got me going in that direction too. Oh, well, let me tell you what, God allowed to happen in my life, good, bad, and indifferent, desirable or undesirable. This is what happened. This is where I am today, to be able to be of assistance for someone else.
Yeah, that's huge. And so, man, I agree 100%. Even going back to the very beginning of what you said, I believe that there's power and there's integrity in saying no, like 100%.
Yes.
And and to hear even just the trajectory of what you say, hey, I make the decision, I think goes back to taking ownership and responsibility. Me saying no or me saying yes is going to either put me in a position and get to where I say I want to go, or it's going to alter where I want to go. And either way, it's going to change as I'm going after, and do those things align. So man, that's huge to hear even some of the things that you've even gained from it too, just to see the transformation as far as even from traveling to being able to confidently say and have a healthy relationship, one with food, your own perspective, how you view yourself, your own vulnerability, and just how you feel about your own self-love, like who you are as a person, being able to say, hey, you know what? I saw dude this morning was fresh in the mirror. Like, what's up? Okay, let me get my hoodie on, whatever, feeling good, feeling great. But also even to hear just the long lasting, the impacts that it's had on the people in your life and that it will have, right? Because when you think about like things this big in people's lives and you look at other things you have to do, I think it just sets the tone on your ability to take on more, to think, you know what? I remember that time where I got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, or I got diagnosed with this, or you know what? I was suffering from an illness or an injury and I had to recover, or, maybe I couldn't stop smoking, or I couldn't do this or couldn't do that, but look at me now. Like, look at what I was able to do. And I think what you say, even in consistency, it's the small steps that lead to those great distances and those really big changes. And it just takes one chance, one opportunity and decision away from being great. So for you, what's next? What's new? We got I think one of the other difficult things that I think people, one that I talk to with my clients too, is how do we move forward, right? We hit that target. Let's say I wanted to lose 10 pounds. I wanted to eat healthier. What I talk to my clients about is like, well, how do you feel? What does this look like for you? Sure, we could lose 20 pounds, but if that doesn't change your perspective or how you feel and what that looks like in your life, like your overall behavioral, my perspective about myself still hasn't changed. What's going on there? How did you go about doing this? Like building healthy or sustainable practices for your own health and wellness or weight management, and how do you keep moving forward now? Because you clearly have, you're a reverser, so you're not there anymore. So you're still moving forward. What does that look like for you? How do you do it?
Well, there's power in consistency. As it relates to doing the same thing over and over again. Sure, in some instances it can become mundane and boring. But when you are fixated on a certain outcome long term, whatever the outcome may be, to do the same thing over and over with some variations or some variations, it's okay. And so, for me, thinking long term, okay, I want to be here for my family. I want to be able to help others. So I'm gonna make sure when I go to the grocery store, I only purchase, certain things. I'm gonna make sure that when I sit down and eat, I'm only watching certain things, which quick plug for my book, there's some things that I watched on my television when I ate that helped me to trick my mind into not only being satisfied, because I was gonna get satisfied anyway because of the foods that I was eating, but also to not feel like I was missing out on the other foods that I desired. It's actually towards the end of my book, as I think a lot of people will appreciate. You think about thinking outside the box, and you know, trying to get to where you're going by any means necessary, legally, of course. So you know, sticking to doing that. You know, I have a regimen that, you know, I still include, you know, natural herbs and sea vegetables. Because long term, from what I know now, long term, I want my son to, and any future children I have as well, I want them to not have to go through something similar. And so, you know, understanding that, you know, there are certain foods that perpetuate chronic illnesses in the body, based on research. There are certain foods that turn on cancers in the body based on research. And then there are certain foods that can turn off cancer or decrease the growth of cancer cells, which, man, I'll be better off starting with that with, you know, my offsprings, and, you know, prayerfully put them in the mindset of, okay, well, this is how I grew up eating, you know, with these particular fruits, with these particular vegetables, you know, with this particular water that is affordable at a local market. You know, so that later in life, you know, they don't find themselves, you know, with the tingly fingers and the tingly toes and the blurred vision, you know, cramps and excessive urination, you know, can never quench their thirst. And so, you know, thinking long term to, you know, an outcome that I want, experiences that I don't want them to have within my control, is, hey, you know, I want to keep going this route. So when I start implementing this, that, and the third, it's not foreign to them because, oh, daddy does that. Oh, this is what daddy does. Oh, I'm just doing what daddy does. You know, stuff like that. So, you know, that keeps me going. You know, as it relates to consistency. I mean, there's still times where, you know, I either have an emotional moment, emotionally eat, you have to pick myself up. There's also times where I plan on, okay, I'm gonna have, you know, this, I'm gonna have that. One thing I just won't have is juice, or two things I won't have is juice or soda. I can't do it. That'll undo everything for me. And I keep that in the back of my mind. You know, I went to I had a business meeting last week in Cedar Hill, Texas, and the restaurant we went to, they didn't allow outside drinks, and I only drink a certain spring water. And they said they served water. And I said, well, you know, 9 times out of 10, the water that you all serve is of a lower pH level than what I'm comfortable with consuming. And I was like, well, we have sodas and juice. And I was like, I don't drink that. And so, you know, I stayed for the meeting, and, you know, I mean, I ate my breakfast, and I mean, it was just a rough one. But you know, keeping it in the front of my mind at that time that, hey, you know, I can't give in to wanting something to wash this down with, because the options that they have long term for me are not beneficial. And depending on what I could have chosen will undo everything that I've done. You know, I mean, juice and soda had a hold on me, man, that, you know, I didn't realize until I let it go. And, you know, of everything that I gave up, again, that's the one thing that, or the two things that could undo everything, from mindset to health and wellness, to, you know, the security that I now have in myself. Because if I'm not confident that I could just take a sip or drink 8 ounces and keep it moving. I'm just not confident in that. You know, I feel like if I consume a little bit, I'm gonna want more, and more is gonna never be achieved, because I will always continue to want more. So, so yes, I just you know, I keep that in mind. Keep all those things in mind. You know, as the days pass. With what it is that I'm doing. I'm in a great routine, man. I mean, you know, I already wake up early as it is. And so, you know, to get up and go work out is kind of like clockwork. I mean, even if I don't set my alarm, I'm still waking up at roughly 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Which is 4 a.m. where I currently am, but it's quite all right. But it's quite all right. Get up, get it in, you know, and, you know, I learned it doesn't take long, man. You know, 30, 45 minutes and I'm done. You know, a very small part of my day, you know, everybody's still asleep. I'm not missing anything. I'm not inconveniencing anyone. and going about my day, feeling good. Like, hey, man,
Mhm.
I accomplished that. What else can I accomplish today? So,
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love some of what I wanted to hit on a little bit is just this purpose driven lifestyle, understanding that if it's not connected, like if you don't have a reason for what you're doing, you don't have that why, like that key piece and that key factor. Having these goals, they sound great, but they're not going to add to consistency if you don't
yeah,
have something in a rationale and why you're getting after it. So I love the fact that you've even hit on that a lot, whether that was your family, your personal self-love and vulnerability, your confidence in who you are, your security in what you want it to be, but the future that you want to have. So you've got all that wrapped in there. So being able to look at things like, if I want this, then of course it makes sense for me to do all these other things,
yeah,
the extent in which I got to do them. Like it makes sense that I give up juice or I give up soda because of what I want is so much greater than that I can hate the things that I thought I loved before. And so, man, that's a huge kudos to you on that. And I love even hearing that, hearing people's stories behind it, what it means to them, and why it's so important. So I appreciate that again. And I guess just kind of wrapping up the mindset portion, or even the change portion, looking at all of what you've overcome. We talked about the before, the during, the after. There's one thing that you can share with someone listening or tuning into this that you believe will help them. What would it be?
get yourself some accountability partners. Whatever it is you want to do, especially as it relates to health and wellness,
Yeah.
get yourself some accountability partners, people that you trust to tell you the truth,
Mm-hmm.
to support you in what it is that you say you want to do, that can look you in your face, regardless of your attitude, regardless if you have an attitude, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
regardless if you get emotional and say, no, you don't need this, or no need to do that, because you said this is what your goal was, and I
Yeah.
want to help you get to your goal. I want to see you achieve whatever your goal is.
Yeah.
Get yourself some accountability partners, and not just one. Get your multiple.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be people in the same space. It doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to be people that have the same interests as you. They don't have to
Yeah.
be the same with the same goals. You just want people that you trust, that
Yeah.
trust you, that love you, that care about you, and overall just want to see you be successful because of who you are and what you mean to them.
Yeah, yeah, that's huge, and that's again, I'm going to echo the same sentiment because things that we share, even in our coaching sessions, people that I meet with, is you need someone in your corner who's not going to tell you what you want to hear,
Yeah, it's
because that's not it's not going to help you. You need someone who's going to give you the raw, the uncut truth, and that's going to make sure that they hold you accountable and they get you to where you want to go. Because we can talk about it. You get into a a flock of seagulls trying to be an eagle, it's not going to happen. You're going to do what they do. You're going to become who they become. Ultimately, surround yourself with the people, going to the places that you want to go. Like getting to the space where you can be with someone that says, "Hey, look, I recall you sharing this before. How's that going?" People that not only like are they going to tell you the truth, they care enough about you to follow up and to check in on you to make sure that you're staying on track and building that up. So another huge key thing is having someone in your life. I'm echoing everything you're saying, that really is going to give you that uncut truth, that reality, and even bring you back. Like, hey man, you said you was going to lose 5 pounds, you gained 20. Help me understand what happened, what changed. Not in a discouraging way, but to help you to understand, like, hey, this is what you said, and this is what you asked me to do, and this is what I'm willing to do for you because I care about you in that way. I think is paramount, man. So even looking at through all of what you got going on here, your journey, your experience. Let's just take a look into what you're talking about your book. All right, so
Man,
fill me in. How are you attempting? If it's just this or it's other ventures that you currently got going on, how are you trying to promote some of what you've been doing and your attempt to help others learn about the benefits of health and wellness through your experience?
yeah, man. So I wanted to be an entrepreneur for years, man. I mean, I was selling candy and cookies in the hallways in high school.
Mm-hmm.
My competition was a school store, didn't
Yeah.
last long because they were more established. They
Mhm.
had, greater rapport. They had a central location. You had to catch me on the fly.
Yeah.
So, I say that to say, and I've tried some other ventures as well. I say that to say, because I've wanted to be an entrepreneur, I had to find something that I wholeheartedly connected with so that
Mhm.
there was passion, there was excitement in pushing it as I tried to sell it.
Yeah.
With the intentions of not only being able to make a living, but also to be able to help and assist others. And so, going through this journey, I decided to write a book. It's called Uncomfortable Peace.
Okay.
And as I started writing it and thinking through it and thinking about the long term, like, what, this can help someone that's in the shoes that I was once in, to kind of overcome some of the pitfalls that I had to step into, or
Mhm.
have a good sense of direction as it relates to self education,
Mhm.
to go down potentially a similar path that I went on, to
Mhm.
heal their body of type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes.
Okay.
Now, I would assume that some of this stuff would be applicable as it relates to other chronic illnesses, but I have no experience with those.
Mhm.
Type 2 diabetes is what I'm experienced with, and then pre-diabetes is right before that. So I'm gonna say I have experience with that as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, pushing the book, man. Set up speaking engagements. I've been fortunate to have been on several podcasts this month of December, with more podcast interviews set up similar to this one,
Okay.
in the year of 2022.
Okay.
I'm in talks, and there's no guarantees, but I'm in talks of working out something with a certain water company, to push a health initiative.
Mhm.
Still in talks of that. No guarantees that it'll come to fruition with
Mhm.
them. And if it doesn't, that's okay. I'll just try to do it on my own,
Yeah.
and figure it out. I've been reaching out to multiple colleges, to try to get with their health department,
Mhm.
within the university, to come and speak to students. I've been trying to coordinate. I've reached out to with the intentions of coordinating with wellness coordinators at different corporations to be able to come and
Mhm.
speak to the employees that they service. Because I'm a part of those demographics. I'm a
Right.
professional that work the desk, that set and ate snacks through the day every day. I used to be a college student. Grateful to have graduated. Not saying that I won't ever be a college student again.
Right.
There's still more out there that I could go for. But I used
Mhm.
to be a college student, and so I am familiar with, at least undergrad, as it relates to undergrad. With buffet style,
Mhm.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Mhm.
With a lot of events giving free food, and most times those foods were not the healthiest.
Mhm.
I'm familiar with rainy days on campus,
Yeah.
and things are shut down on campus for whatever reason, and so you got to go into the local town to find something to eat. Go with a group of friends, man. You sit there and consume
Yeah.
2,000-3,000 calories, just having conversations. I'm familiar with
Right.
that. And so wanting to get into the universities, to kind of help them avoid some of the mistakes that I made,
Mhm.
unknowingly, not paying attention to my health at that
Mhm.
early of an age, 18, 19, 20, so that, come 30, 31 years old, you're
Mhm.
not in this position,
Yeah.
fighting for your life, but, to be able to put together a specific routine, that's preventative,
Mhm.
to prevent such a chronic illness, is what I aspire to speak on, at universities, at different corporations. We got a commercial that's coming out for the book, that should be released Q1
Okay.
of 2022. It's actually almost done, so it may be early Q1 of 2022. And then we're pushing the book. We haven't released it on social media
Okay.
as of the day of this recording, which is Christmas Eve. But I do plan on really pushing it on the 26th of December,
Okay.
right after Christmas. It's called Uncomfortable Peace, and I think it's a great story.
Mhm.
I lived it. I've gotten some good reviews so far from those that I leaked it to to kind of get their feedback
Yeah.
as just as working professionals
Sure.
that are experiencing different health ailments as different ailments as well. And so we're pushing that, man. We also have another company called Prince and Duchess Collection, and
Okay.
it has a health focus as well, but it's very subtle.
Okay.
It's a baby brand that we started in honor of our son and then our future children to come.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to push the one main idea that to the children that you are worthy, you are enough, you're royalty, you're the heirs of your family.
Mm-hmm.
And in being such, you want to take care of yourselves just as your family wants to take care of you,
Mm-hmm.
from a holistic health standpoint, from mental health to physical health.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we touch on health very subtly in that with our designs, with the products that we do have, but we're not pushing that as heavy as we are pushing the book. It's kind of going to kind of drag on the coattail of the book, and the Davis Family Publishing Company is going to be front and center. So we have some events that we're planning for 2023 already concerning the Prince and Duchess collection, but right now just focusing on pushing the book, getting into even just a fraction of the 100+ million Americans that are plagued with pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
In hopes of being able to help someone, get through the reversal process as naturally as possible.
Yeah.
I talk a lot in my book about how I chose not to take prescription medication. That's not to say that anyone should or should not. It was a decision I had to make for myself based on my own research. And I'm grateful that I made that decision. I feel good. I feel very confident in the decision that I made. And so for anyone else that has, contemplated, doing or not doing, going that route or not, just want to be able to provide for them, a start to finish story, or start to current rather story of someone being myself, of, everything that I experienced, surrounding having made the decision and why.
Yeah, man, that's a lot. So even with Princess and Duchess, do you guys currently have products out and available? People able to purchase it? You got a site? What does that look like right now? Where are you at in that process?
Yeah, so Prince and Duchess Collection is a portion of Davis Family Management LLC, and so we did push it out first, early Q4 of this year. So it's October that it was launched. The website for that is padcollection.org. That's PAD collection.org. And so we do have some baby one-piece bodysuits. We do have baby bibs, as well as baby hats. We have more products that are to come over time, more designs as well. Our company is, or that part of our company is designed to grow as our son grows. And so right now we only offer 0 to 12 month size clothing, but we will be offering larger sizes as our son gets older, with intentions of, again, the company growing as he grows, so that, once he is of age, to really learn about business and learn, what it is that his mother and I have, put into play for him to be able to take over. Should he choose to, he'll feel a sense of connection with it just from what we share with him, because it grew as he grew.
Yeah, that's a great story. I love that. Love that. Love that. Love that. So is there anything else that you'd like to share that you haven't yet? You talked about a little leakage, with the book. So is there anything that you could share with anyone else interested here that you haven't yet, on a little sneak peek on what's to come in the book?
Yeah, man. I dedicated an entire chapter to water in my book. And it's crazy, man. I think back, years ago, people pushing, certain types of waters and machines and what have you. I don't talk about that in my book at all. But I do talk about, just a lot of education, self-education on what it is you're putting in your body. And that chapter specifically with water. And so, people can expect to gain a sense of hope for those that can feel hopeless as it relates to type 2 diabetes, or someone that they know that is diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. But more importantly, they'll be able to gain clear direction on where to start their
Yeah.
own self-education.
Okay.
Because with this, I found in comparison to those that I met that are type 2 diabetic, I found that choosing to research as much as possible about the illness, as well as research as much as possible about what can be done to reverse this illness, has aided me a lot more and a lot better than someone that only relied on the words and instructions of someone else, whether that be a medical professional, a family member, a friend, or someone that they found online that maybe is a public speaker. For them, for some of these people that I've met, for them to only rely on the words of someone else hasn't worked out as good for them as self-education has worked out for me. And so in my book, I talk a lot about self-education, getting an understanding of what it is that's going on, so that you can at least have more chips to play with, to figure out what direction you want to go. And there are some before and after pictures on there, pictures that people may be able to identify with, as it relates to to physical appearance and weight. People may be able to identify with some of those photos, so they can expect to see those. I get very vulnerable in this book, and it's intentional because there was a group that I joined on Facebook when I first was diagnosed, and they didn't allow for the level of vulnerability that I needed to get an understanding of what I was going through and how to better my situation. I mean, they really censored a lot of the things that were shared in that group, beneficial information looking back on it. And so, but anyone that decides to purchase my book, which I would really encourage, especially if you have type 2 diabetes or know someone that is type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic, they won't find that there's information that's censored. The only thing that I don't include in my book is name brands. So I don't mention the specific name of the diabetes medication that I was prescribed that I chose not to use. And the reason for that is very simple. I don't want anyone to think, oh, well, I was prescribed something else, so I shouldn't have a problem. No, you want to know the side effects of what you're prescribed and or what you're currently taking, just so you have every piece of information that you can have to make the best decision possible for yourself. I don't make mention of the name brand of the water that I consume, because I want people to get an understanding of water from a much greater standpoint of, okay, because if that certain water is not available, then what am I going to drink? So if you have an understanding of pH levels and what to look for when it comes to water, then you won't be in that position. And then I do make mention of a few hacks that I won't say on a recording, but they're in my book. One of them I had alluded to earlier on, tricking the mind, or tricking my mind rather, to not only feel satisfied with what I was consuming, and not only to feel good having ate, but also to feel like, man, I'm not missing out on a burger or a pizza right now. Not missing out on the itis, because that's ultimately, at least for me, what I get. When I was consuming those things consistently, pizza, nachos, burgers, pasta, I was getting the itis, and not being able to be productive after I consume. And this is in the middle of the day during lunch at work. My productivity decreased significantly after lunch. Back, prior to being diagnosed, when I ate spaghetti every day for lunch and stuff like that. So people have found a lot of self-education, direction in my book.
Okay. Well, all right, Vernon. Well, I don't think I have anything else, my friend. So unless there's something you think you'd like to throw back in there, by all means, please do. I want to say thank you, and I really appreciate you taking the time, to speak with me, to share your story, to allow the people that I connect with, that you're connected with, to get a glimpse into your life. I appreciate your vulnerability, for your depth and understanding of how important self-education really is to understand the changes you're about to make to your life, how important purpose is, and discipline and consistency is to get those things, to obtain it. And most importantly, again, even just overall health and wellness, and just being able to just share the level of, to an extent, where you've come from, what it's taken, and what it looks like to keep moving forward. So, Vernon, thank you, brother. I really appreciate it. And we'll have to connect again sometime, and I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. And I'm looking forward to the book. And again, just for the sake of a repeat here, padcollection.org is your Princess and Duchess collection as well. So anyone out there interested in looking for that, definitely go check it out. So thank you again, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Jonathan, man, pleasure's all mine, man. Thank you so much for having me on, for taking the time to, to ask me those thought-provoking questions and allow for me to share my story. That's the last thing I'll say is the Davis Family Publishing website will be up in January. That's dfpublishing.org. On there, people are able to purchase signed copies of my book. For those that don't want to wait until the website is up, you can purchase it now on Amazon. Just search Uncomfortable Peace. That's PEACE, Uncomfortable Peace. And also, in the spirit of accountability, we'll be offering an accountability service, diabetes accountability program. That's also going to be on the Davis Family Publishing website. Again, that's dfpublishing.org.
Let's go. It's huge. You didn't tell me that. Just throw that in there. Just slide that right in. So I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Well, we'll talk. We'll connect, man. I've appreciated it, and I look forward to hearing from you again, brother. Take it easy.
Man, thank you, man. Merry Christmas to you.
Hey, same to you. Merry Christmas.
All right, take care.